OMG. Your soulmate cut someone off after finding out this about you. My beloved child, there is a reason your heart paused when these words appeared before you. Some moments are too meaningful to ignore, and this is one of them. What you are about to hear is not about fear or coincidence. It is about a quiet decision that changed the direction of two lives. Somewhere, without you even knowing it, someone connected to your future reached a turning point. They discovered something about you that completely reshaped the way they saw their own life. They realized your heart carries a rare kind of honesty, the kind that cannot be imitated. They understood that the peace they had been searching for was never found in crowded places or temporary connections. It was found in the thought of someone they had not fully met yet. That realization became impossible to ignore. For a long time they tried to convince themselves that everything around them was enough. They listened to opinions that did not match their own heart. They stayed in conversations that felt empty. They smiled when they were expected to smile, yet every evening they felt something was missing. Then one unexpected moment changed everything. A simple conversation, a quiet reflection, or perhaps a sign they could not explain opened their eyes. They began to understand that they had been holding on to people who were keeping them away from becoming the person they were meant to be. That was the moment everything shifted. Instead of making loud announcements, they chose silence. Instead of arguing, they chose peace. Instead of forcing relationships that no longer felt genuine, they stepped away with kindness. To everyone watching, it seemed like an ordinary decision. But deep inside, it was much more than that. It was the first chapter of a completely different future. The surprising part is this. The decision was not made because someone told them to do it. It happened because they discovered qualities about you that inspired them to raise their own standards. They heard about your loyalty. They sensed your patience. They admired your ability to keep believing even when life became uncertain. Those qualities challenged them to become better themselves. Little by little they began removing distractions from their life. They stopped wasting energy on connections that only created confusion. They stopped chasing approval from people who never truly appreciated them. Every step away from the past became one step closer to the future they secretly hoped for. If you have ever wondered why your own journey has felt slower than expected, this may be part of the answer. Sometimes two people are prepared separately before their paths can cross in the right season. Growth happens quietly. Healing happens privately. The strongest foundations are often built where no one else can see them. Today, your story is still unfolding. There may still be unanswered questions, unexpected turns, and moments that require patience. But every meaningful journey includes seasons where progress is invisible before it becomes undeniable. Trust that what is genuine never needs to be forced. The right connections are strengthened by honesty, respect, and kindness, and those qualities never lose their value. So lift your head with confidence. Continue becoming the person you are proud to be. Keep choosing compassion over bitterness, hope over doubt, and peace over unnecessary conflict. The future has a remarkable way of rewarding steady hearts. And when the right moment finally arrives, you may discover that many quiet choices made by both of you were leading toward the same destination all along. The quietest transformations often happen when no one is watching. While you continued living your life, unaware of what was unfolding behind the scenes, your soulmate found themselves standing at a crossroads. Every familiar voice around them seemed to offer a different direction, yet none of those paths brought peace. They began to notice something unusual. Every time they imagined a future built on appearances, their heart felt restless. But every time they imagined a future built on honesty, kindness, and unwavering loyalty, an unexplainable calm settled over them. That calm became impossible to ignore. At first, they questioned themselves. They wondered if they were overthinking everything. Perhaps they were being too hopeful. Perhaps they were expecting too much from life. But as the days passed, those doubts slowly lost their strength. Deep inside, they realized they were no longer willing to hold on to connections that demanded them to become someone they were never meant to be. They wanted something genuine, something lasting, something that would still shine even after excitement faded. One evening, while reflecting on everything they had experienced over the past few years, they noticed a pattern. Every disappointment had taught them something valuable. Every delay had strengthened their patience. Every goodbye had quietly prepared them for a future hello that would feel completely different from anything they had experienced before. For the first time in a long while, they stopped asking why certain people had walked away. Instead, they became grateful that those chapters had ended. As their perspective changed, so did the people they allowed into their life. Conversations that once felt exciting suddenly seemed empty. Attention that once impressed them no longer carried the same meaning. They realized they were searching for peace instead of noise, truth instead of appearances, and sincerity instead of temporary excitement. It surprised even them how quickly their priorities began to change. There was one conversation they remembered more than any other. Someone close to them encouraged them to settle for less, telling them that genuine connections were rare and that they should simply accept whatever came their way. Those words echoed in their mind for days. but something inside refused to agree. They knew that a heart built on honesty deserved honesty in return. They knew that kindness deserved kindness. They knew that waiting for something meaningful was better than rushing towards something that would never last. That realization gave them unexpected courage. They quietly stepped away from situations that no longer reflected the person they were becoming. There was no anger. No dramatic farewell. Only peace. Some people misunderstood the decision. Others questioned it. A few even tried to convince them to change their mind. But they remained calm because, for the first time, they trusted their own heart more than the opinions around them. Meanwhile, your own journey continued to shape you in ways you could not yet fully understand. Challenges taught you resilience. Quiet moments taught you gratitude. Delays taught you patience. Even when nothing seemed to be changing, something valuable was growing beneath the surface. Growth often happens so gradually that we only recognize it when we look back. The remarkable thing is that both of your stories were moving forward at the same time without either of you realizing it. Different places. Different experiences. Different lessons. Yet every step carried the same purpose, preparing two hearts to recognize what truly matters when the time was right. Your soulmate often found themselves wondering about the kind of person they hoped to meet someday. They stopped imagining perfection. Instead, they imagined someone who would bring peace into ordinary days, someone who could laugh during simple moments, someone who would remain kind even when life became difficult. Without realizing it, those quiet hopes reflected many of the qualities your own heart had been developing all along. The future has an unusual way of bringing clarity after long seasons of uncertainty. Sometimes answers arrive slowly, not because they are being withheld, but because they become more meaningful after we have grown enough to understand them. Every lesson has its season. Every opportunity has its moment. Every meaningful relationship has its own timing. So if today feels ordinary, do not underestimate it. Some of the most important chapters begin on completely ordinary days. A simple decision, a new perspective, an unexpected conversation, or a moment of quiet reflection can become the turning point that changes everything that follows. Continue becoming the person you are proud to be. Continue choosing honesty even when shortcuts seem easier. Continue believing that genuine connections are worth waiting for. The qualities you nurture today become the foundation of every meaningful tomorrow. Your story is not defined by what has already happened. It is shaped by the choices you continue making from this moment forward. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, Another heart is learning lessons that will one day allow both of your journeys to make sense in ways neither of you can yet imagine. This is not the end of the story. It is simply another page in a much larger journey, one that reminds us that hope grows strongest when it is rooted in patience, kindness, and the courage to become our best selves, one quiet step at a time. A new chapter began without either of you recognizing it at first. While life appeared ordinary on the surface, countless small moments were quietly preparing the way for something meaningful. Your soulmate had already left behind the relationships that no longer reflected the future they wanted. The silence that followed was unfamiliar, but instead of fearing it, they embraced it. For the first time in years, they felt they had enough space to hear their own heart clearly. There were mornings when they questioned whether they had made the right choice. Walking away from familiar people was never easy, even when it was the healthiest decision. Yet every time uncertainty appeared, another reminder followed. A meaningful conversation, an unexpected act of kindness from a stranger, or a quiet moment of reflection always seemed to reassure them that moving forward had been the right path. Without realizing it, they also began changing in ways that others quickly noticed. They became more patient, more thoughtful, and more grateful for life's simple blessings. They no longer felt the need to impress everyone around them. Instead, they focused on becoming someone they themselves could respect. That quiet confidence became their greatest strength. At the same time, your own journey continued unfolding with equal purpose. There were moments when you wondered why certain doors had remained closed. You questioned whether your efforts were leading anywhere. Yet every challenge was building resilience that could not be gained any other way. Looking back someday, you may realize that those difficult seasons were never meant to stop you. They were preparing you. One evening, your soulmate found themselves reflecting on the kind of future they truly desired. They no longer dreamed about a perfect life. They dreamed about a peaceful one. They imagined sharing ordinary mornings with someone who valued honesty over appearances, kindness over pride, and loyalty over temporary excitement. Those thoughts filled them with hope instead of fear. Then something unexpected happened. Someone from their past reached out once again. It seemed like an opportunity to return to what had once felt familiar. For a brief moment, they considered it. Familiarity has a way of inviting us back, even when we have already outgrown it. But as they reflected more deeply, they realized something important. Returning would only repeat the same chapter they had already finished. Growth sometimes means saying no to what once felt comfortable so that something better has room to arrive. That decision became another quiet victory. From that day forward, they stopped looking backward. Every step they took was directed toward the future. They became more intentional with their time, more careful with their words, and more protective of their peace. Friends noticed the difference. Family members noticed the difference. Even they were surprised by how much lighter life felt after letting go of unnecessary burdens. Meanwhile, there were subtle changes happening in your own world as well. New opportunities began appearing. Small moments brought unexpected encouragement. Conversations that once seemed ordinary suddenly carried deeper meaning. It was as though life itself was gently reminding you that every season has its purpose, even when the destination is still beyond the horizon. The remarkable truth is that meaningful connections rarely happen by accident. They are often built long before two people ever meet. Every lesson, every setback, every act of forgiveness, and every moment of personal growth becomes part of the foundation. By the time two paths finally cross, countless unseen moments have already prepared both hearts for that meeting. Your soulmate had begun believing this with complete confidence. They no longer rushed life. They trusted that what was meant to arrive would arrive at the right time. Instead of chasing certainty, they embraced patience. Instead of fearing the unknown, they welcomed it with hope. One afternoon, they came across a simple quote that stayed with them: "The right people will never require you to become someone else to earn their respect." Those words settled deeply within their heart. They realized that genuine relationships are never built on pretending. They grow through honesty, mutual respect, and shared values. That realization strengthened every choice they had made. As the weeks passed, they found themselves smiling more often. Not because every problem had disappeared, but because they finally believed that the future could be brighter than the past. They understood that every ending had quietly created space for a beginning they could not yet see. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within this story. Sometimes life asks us to release what is familiar before revealing what is truly meaningful. The waiting is not empty. It is preparation. The silence is not absence. It is growth. The uncertainty is not failure. It is the space where hope quietly learns to become stronger. Your journey and your soulmate's journey continue moving forward, each one shaped by patience, courage, and quiet transformation. The pages are still turning. New moments are still being written. And somewhere ahead, when the timing is right, both stories may finally begin to read as one. Until that day arrives, continue choosing kindness. Continue becoming the person you hope to meet. Continue believing that genuine connections are built one honest decision at a time. Every step you take today becomes part of tomorrow's story, and some of the most beautiful chapters are the ones that begin long before anyone realizes they have already started. The next chapter unfolded with a quiet sense of purpose. Neither of you could see the full picture yet, but every experience was beginning to fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Your soulmate no longer questioned why certain people had left their life. Instead, they thanked those experiences for teaching them what genuine connection should feel like. They realized that every disappointment had quietly refined their heart instead of hardening it. As the days passed, something unexpected happened. Their attention shifted away from searching for answers and toward becoming the kind of person they had always hoped to be. They began reading more, listening more carefully, and appreciating the simple moments they once overlooked. Peace slowly replaced pressure. Confidence quietly replaced uncertainty. There was one afternoon that stayed with them for a long time. While sitting alone with their thoughts, they reflected on every decision that had brought them to this point. They remembered the friendships that faded, the opportunities that never worked out, and the conversations that changed everything. Looking back, they noticed a pattern they had never seen before. Every closed door had gently redirected them toward a better path. What once felt like loss now looked like protection. At that same time, your own life continued moving forward in ways you might not have fully recognized. Small victories began appearing where there had once been frustration. New possibilities quietly emerged from places you had almost stopped noticing. You became stronger without realizing it. You became calmer without forcing it. The challenges that once felt overwhelming gradually became reminders of how far you had already come. Your soulmate also noticed something changing within themselves. They no longer compared their journey to anyone else's. They understood that every meaningful story unfolds at its own pace. Instead of rushing toward tomorrow, they chose to appreciate today. That simple change in perspective made life feel lighter than it had in years. Then another meaningful realization arrived. Someone they once trusted attempted to reconnect, hoping to return things to the way they had been. The invitation seemed familiar, almost comforting. But after everything they had learned, they recognized that returning to the past would only take them away from the future they now believed in. With kindness and respect, they chose to keep moving forward. It was not an easy decision, but it was the right one for the person they had become. That moment gave them an unexpected sense of freedom. For the first time, they truly believed that the best chapters of life are never found by repeating old stories. They are created by having the courage to write new ones. Meanwhile, you continued growing through your own experiences. There were moments when patience felt difficult, but each challenge quietly strengthened your character. You learned that lasting happiness is not built through perfect circumstances. It grows through gratitude, resilience, and the willingness to keep believing in brighter days. As both journeys continued, the similarities between your paths became remarkable. Though you had never shared the same experiences, you were learning the same lessons. Both of you were discovering the value of honesty. Both of you were choosing peace over unnecessary conflict. Both of you were letting go of expectations that no longer served your future. It was as though life itself was preparing two separate hearts to appreciate the same values before allowing their paths to move closer together. The beauty of timing is that it often reveals itself only after we stop trying to control it. Your soulmate finally understood this. Instead of worrying about when the future would arrive, they focused on becoming fully present. Every sunrise became a reminder that another opportunity was beginning. Every evening became a reminder to be thankful for how much growth had already taken place. Their hope no longer depended on immediate answers. It rested in quiet confidence. Perhaps the most surprising part of this journey was realizing that genuine change rarely announces itself with dramatic moments. More often, it arrives through small decisions repeated consistently. Choosing kindness one more time. Choosing patience one more day. Choosing forgiveness one more moment. Those quiet choices slowly transform an entire life. Your story is following that same path. Every experience is adding another meaningful page. Every lesson is preparing you for opportunities still waiting beyond the horizon. Even when progress feels invisible, growth is taking place beneath the surface. If there is one truth that continues shining through every chapter, it is this: the future belongs to those who continue moving forward with hope. Not because every day is easy, but because hope gives ordinary days extraordinary purpose. So continue trusting your journey. Continue building a life rooted in honesty, compassion, and gratitude. The choices you make today are quietly shaping the chapters that have not yet been written. And somewhere beyond today's horizon, another heart is walking its own path with the same quiet determination. Step by step, lesson by lesson, both stories continue unfolding toward a future that neither of you could have fully imagined at the beginning. The pages are still turning, and the most meaningful chapter has not been written yet. The final chapter begins with a simple truth: every meaningful journey reaches a moment when the waiting starts to make sense. Not because every question is answered all at once, but because the heart finally understands that every step, every delay, and every unexpected turn carried a purpose. As your soulmate looked back on everything they had experienced, they no longer saw a story filled with disappointments. They saw a path that had quietly guided them toward becoming the person they were always meant to be. There was a calmness within them now that had never existed before. The noise of the past no longer held power over their thoughts. The opinions that once influenced every decision slowly faded into the background. Instead, they trusted something much deeper, the quiet confidence that comes from knowing they had chosen honesty over comfort, peace over confusion, and growth over familiarity. One evening, while watching the sunset paint the sky with colors that lasted only a few moments, they smiled without even realizing it. They understood that some of life's greatest gifts arrive gently. They are not announced with grand celebrations. They appear through unexpected peace, renewed hope, and the quiet realization that the future no longer feels uncertain. It feels welcoming. Your own journey had been changing in similar ways. The challenges that once seemed impossible had become reminders of your resilience. The questions that once filled your mind every day no longer carried the same weight. You had learned that patience is not about standing still. It is about continuing to move forward with faith even when every answer has not yet arrived. Without knowing each other's stories, both of you had learned the same lesson: genuine connections are never built on appearances. They are built on trust, respect, kindness, and the willingness to grow together instead of apart. That understanding became the greatest gift either of you could receive. As time continued moving forward, your soulmate realized something that completely changed the way they viewed every relationship. They understood that the people who truly belong in your future will never ask you to abandon your values to earn their acceptance. They will appreciate the very qualities that make you who you are. That realization gave them the confidence to stop searching for approval and start living with authenticity. The remarkable thing is that your journey had led you to the very same conclusion. You had discovered that peace is more valuable than constant validation. You had learned that kindness is never wasted, even when it is not immediately returned. Every act of compassion, every moment of patience, and every choice to remain true to yourself had quietly shaped the person you had become. Sometimes we imagine that life changes in a single dramatic moment. But more often, it changes through hundreds of quiet decisions that almost seem insignificant while they are happening. Choosing hope instead of fear. Choosing gratitude instead of resentment. Choosing honesty instead of pretending. Those small choices become the foundation of an extraordinary future. If there is one message this story leaves behind, it is this: never underestimate the quiet seasons of your life. They are often the seasons where your greatest growth takes place. While nothing appears to be happening on the surface, your character is becoming stronger, your perspective is becoming clearer, and your future is being prepared in ways you cannot yet see. Your soulmate came to appreciate that truth with all their heart. They stopped trying to force tomorrow to arrive more quickly. Instead, they chose to fully live each day with purpose, believing that the right moments would come naturally when the time was right. Perhaps that is where this story finds its most meaningful ending. Not with certainty about every detail, but with confidence that hope is never misplaced when it is rooted in truth, kindness, and patience. Life has a remarkable way of connecting lessons before it connects people. By the time meaningful paths cross, both hearts have often been transformed by experiences they never expected to have. As you close this chapter, remember that every sunrise offers another opportunity to grow. Every conversation offers another opportunity to show kindness. Every challenge offers another opportunity to become stronger. Your future is not defined by the chapters already written. It is shaped by the choices you continue making today. Some stories end with loud celebrations. Others end with quiet peace. This one ends with a reminder that the most beautiful journeys are not measured by how quickly they unfold, but by the wisdom, compassion, and hope they leave behind. So continue walking forward with confidence. Continue believing in the value of honesty. Continue choosing kindness when it would be easier to choose bitterness. Continue trusting that every meaningful chapter arrives at the right time. And if this story has reminded you of anything, let it be this: the greatest transformations often begin long before anyone notices them, and the brightest tomorrows are built through the quiet faithfulness of today. This chapter may be ending, but every new day is another blank page waiting to be filled with hope, purpose, and possibilities. Wherever your path leads next, may it always lead you closer to peace, to growth, and to the kind of future that reflects the very best of who you are. The end.